Hello friends, welcome to ePathshala. I am Rohit Sharma, Assistant Professor in the Department of Political Science, RA College Ludhiana, which is affiliated to Punjab University Chandigarh. Today, we will discuss about the Constitutional Assembly of India. The Constitutional Assembly of India, along with that we will discuss about its socio-economic composition, its ideological moorings and vision. We will also talk about the basic features of the composition of Constituent Assembly and its working. In this module, we will analyze the backdrop of Constituent Assembly, the various reasons behind formation of Constituent Assembly of India, and the formation process of Constituent Assembly of India has been analyzed. Thereafter, composition and nature of Constituent Assembly of India will be analyzed, then working of its. Lastly, the important committees and session of Constituent Assembly of India will be discussed. Thus, in this module, we will examine the overview of Constituent Assembly of India. In every country of the world where Constitution has been framed, it has been done by some Constituent Assembly, and similarly, the Constitution of India was framed by a Constituent Assembly. The demand for the creation of Constituent Assembly was made in 1934 by the Congress for the first time in the history of Indian freedom movement. The Fazpur session of 1936 made a bold declaration that the Congress stands for genuine democratic state in India where political power has been transferred as a whole to the people and government is accountable to the people directly. Such a state can only come into existence through Constituent Assembly having power to determine finally the constitution of the country. In 1938, Jawaharlal Nehru formally formulated the demand for the constitution of Indian Constituent Assembly. Initially, the government was not paying due attention towards the creation of the Constituent Assembly, but later on, due to internal pressure from India, the British government conceded to the formation of Constituent Assembly in India. In September 1945, the British government declared that it was contemplating for the creation of a constituent body in India. The then Viceroy Lord Wavell declared that the elections to the provincial assemblies would be held in December-January 1945-46, which in turn would elect the Constituent Assembly. During this phase of the freedom movement, the relations between the Muslim League and the Congress had become tense. The British government sent the cabinet mission in 1946 to set up the Constituent Assembly, but this mission could not resolve the difference between the two parties. Then the government came up with a cabinet mission plan, according to which India's demand for the setting up of Constituent Assembly to draw up her own constitution was finally accepted. Under this plan, a Constituent Assembly was to be formed, which was to consist of 381 members representing all the provinces and the states on the basis of one member every million of the population. The task of this assembly was to frame constitution for whole of the Indian Union. The makers of the constitution faced many challenges in the Constituent Assembly, which emanated from the size and composition of the body, the nature and content of the freedom movement, and the intellectual, social, and political background of the Indian elites who were also set to give a constitution to the new state, which was essentially an old society. And perhaps this constituted the main challenge about the problems confronting the Constituent Assembly. No doubt, the nationalist movement consolidated many diverse tendencies in India's national life, but decision-making on India's institutional strategy was not, however, wholly a product of agreements reached during the movement. The agreements that existed were at a very general level. The deliberation of the Constituent Assembly had to be far more precise. There were different socio-religious groups at the time of the formation of the Constituent Assembly. Every socio-religious group wanted to mold the constitution into its own perspective. For instance, the Hindu Mahasabha wanted to make India a Hindu state because the majority of its population is constituted by the Hindus. The Socialist Party, after getting separated from the Congress, wanted socialistic orientation in the draft constitution of India. But the dominant Congress party did not have a clear standing. Though Gandhi was a leader, the Congress was never Gandhian. Nehru made it clear when he said that the party had never considered the Gandhian view of society, much less adopt it. Thus, the formation of Constituent Assembly was a historic attempt to frame the Constitution of India as its formation is the culmination of the freedom struggle. The Constituent Assembly for India met on December 8, 1946. It was not a sovereign body because it was formed by the British government, which could also abolish it. But with the passing of Indian Independence Act, it attained the sovereign character and became able to work independently. It also took the responsibility of a provincial parliament. Almost all communities of India were represented in proportion to their population. A drafting committee to study and consider this constitution was set up under the chairmanship of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. The constitution was adopted on November 26, 1949 and came into force on January 26, 1950. It was elected on democratic basis. Each province was represented in the assembly on the basis of its population. Second, communal electorates were abolished to the extent that no community except the Sikhs and the Muslims was given separate electorate. Third, all the members of Constituent Assembly were Indians. The British government did not nominate any member to the Constituent Assembly. In this sense, the assembly was purely Indian and to that extent was free from outside control or interference. Thus, this assembly was sovereign within the framework of the scheme. Fourthly, nomination. The nominees of the princely states were not elected by the people of the states but were nominated by the respective princes. This made the assembly less representative. The Constituent Assembly was to have 389 members, out of which 296 were to be elected from the British Indian provinces and 93 were to be the nominated members of various princely states. Out of the 296 elected members, 212 were put in the general category. 4 seats were reserved for Sikhs and the Muslims. The Constituent Assembly was dominated by the Congress party. Congress secured 58% of the total seats in the provincial legislatures. In the Constituent Assembly, the INC got 203 seats out of 212 general seats respectively. Thus, the Congress represented 69% of the total seats of the Constituent Assembly. This percentage rose to 82% after partition. Thus, the Congress was considered as the largest dominated party in the Constituent Assembly. Sixth, Indian National Congress was a heterogeneous party before independence because it included the groups belonging to various ideologies. The important groups were the Socialist, the Gandhian, and the Rightist. The Socialists were further subdivided into the Marxian and the Democratic groups. Marxian Socialists believed in the revolutionary methods for the transformation of the society, while the Democratic Socialists were in favor of the evolutionary methods. Both these groups opposed the institution of private property and wanted to establish an egalitarian society. Nehru was a representative of democratic socialism. The rightist group supported the interests of the capitalist and landed class. They stood for private ownership of property. Sardar Patel was the leader of the rightist group. The Gandhian group advocated the promotion of village and small-scale industries. It criticized the capitalist mode of production. Thus, all these ideologies had a definite impact on the making of the Constitution. Seventh, most of the members of the Constituent Assembly belonged to an extremely small westernized middle class, which was the outcome of the British education system in India. The members of this class inherited a radical and alien social perspective based largely on the European experience in the 20th century. Besides, most of the members of the assembly were lawyers who endeavored to make the constitution more legalistic. Therefore, it has been rightly said that our constitution suffers from an overdose of legalism. The Constituent Assembly had a dominant majority of the Congress. The major leaders of this party played a vital role in the functioning of the Constituent Assembly. Granville Austin says, this dominating position of the Congress did not make it autocratic in any manner and did not lead towards any suppression of dissent within or outside the party. Congress did not interfere in the election of the members of the Constituent Assembly. In case of the Assembly, it was its major consideration that the minorities should get proper position. Thus, with its initiative, the minorities got their due representation. The presence of the major Congress leaders in the Constituent Assembly did not in any way silence the dissent. Discussions were held in a free manner and decisions were taken only after the lengthy speeches and discussions. The representatives of the minority communities also got a fair share in the proceedings of the debates of the Constituent Assembly. Granville Austin, in his book The Indian Constitution, Cornerstone of a Nation, says that the decisions in the Constituent Assembly were taken by the principles of consensus and accommodation. But it is difficult to believe that whether decisions could be taken with consensus where major stalwarts of the Congress were present. O.P. Goel criticizes the basic thesis of Granville Austin. He says, even Azad and Prasad were not so strong within the oligarchy. Rather, Dr. Rajendra Prasad was a lieutenant of Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel. Thus, there was just two-man oligarchy in the Constituent Assembly, Patel and Nehru. Hence, some of the principles represent the ideology of Sardar Patel, while some other represents the ideology of Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. As right to property of the original constitution represents the ideology of Sardar Patel, while directive principle of state policy, mainly a socialist pattern of society, represents the Nehruvian ideology. The conduct of the working of the Constituent Assembly was held in a unique way. Firstly, it laid down the terms of reference as in the form of objective resolution, which was moved by Nehru later. Later on, preamble was constituted. General committees were formed regarding different aspects of the constitutional problems. Most of the committees were headed either by Sardar Patel or by Jawaharlal Nehru. On the reporting of all these committees, a draft constitution was proposed by B.N. Rao. The Constituent Assembly then constituted a draft committee with Dr. Ambedkar as its head. This committee worked on the original draft and produced the draft constitution. The Assembly held together 11 sessions which covered a period of 165 days. Of these, 114 days were spent on the consideration of the draft constitution. The constitutional advisors' text on which the drafting committee worked consisted of 243 articles and 13 schedules. The draft constitution prepared by the committee consisted of 315 articles and 8 schedules. At the end of the consideration stage, the number of articles grew to 386. In its final form, the constitution had 395 articles and 8 schedules. Thus, finally, a constitution for free India was prepared. This constitution was adopted on 26 November 1949 and came into operation on 26 January 1950. Thus, India became a republic. Important committees of the Constituent Assembly and their chairman. Committee on the Rules of Procedure headed by Rajendra Prasad. Steering Committee, Rajendra Prasad. Finance and Staff Committee, Rajendra Prasad. Credential Committee, Aladi Krishna Swami Iyer. House Committee, B. Patabhi Sitaramaiah. Order of Business Committee, K. M. Munshi. Ad hoc Committee on the National Flag, Rajendra Prasad. Committee on the Functions of the Constituent Assembly, G. V. Mavlikar. States Committee, Jawaharlal Nehru. Advisory Committee on Fundamental Rights, Minorities and Tribal and Excluded Areas, Vallabhbhai Patel. Minorities Subcommittee H.C. Mukherjee, Fundamental Rights Subcommittee J.B. Kriplani, Northeast Frontier Tribal Areas and Assam Excluded and Partially Excluded Areas Subcommittee Gopinath Bardroli, Excluded and Partially Excluded Areas other than those in Assam Subcommittee A.V. Thakkar, Union Powers Committee Jawaharlal Nehru, Union Constitution Committee Jawaharlal Nehru, Drafting Committee B.R. Ambedkar. Sessions of the Constituent Assembly. There were 11 sessions of the Constituent Assembly. First session December 9 to 23, 1946. Second session 20 to 25th January 1947. Third session 28 April to 2nd May 1947. Fourth session 14 to 31st July 1947. Fifth session 14 to 30th August 1947. Sixth session 27 Jan 1948. Seventh session 4 November 1948 to 8 January 1949. Eighth session 16 May to 16 June 1949. Ninth session 30th July to 18th September 1949. 10th session 6 to 17 October 1949. 11th session 14 to 26 November 1949. The Assembly met once again on 24th Jan 1950 when the members appended their signatures to the Constitution of India. Let's sum up. In today's discussion, we have learnt about how the Constituent Assembly of India was constituted in 1934. Along with that, we saw that many committees were formulated in this regard. With this, we also learnt about the socio-economic composition of our Constituent Assembly, which helped us to get the Constitution of India and its ideological moorings and vision. Thank you.